Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Seer Mother Podcast. I am excited to be back with you today. Before our conversation today, I know many of you have been looking forward to part 2 of raising learners in a digital age. We were unable to record as planned because my guest, Dr. Yano, has not been available, and we still plan on asking that specific topic. But as I watched families begin to prepare for the school year, I realized that there is another conversation we need to have right now. And so today, I want to talk to you about the backpack is full, what your child really needs to thrive the school year. The bags are already packed. The supplies have been bought. The schedules are set. But there is another backpack our children carry, one that we cannot see. And that's why today I wanted to make sure that we talked about this. So let's talk briefly about what may be inside that invisible backpack that you all do not see. Of course, our children are prepared for school. Some of them have resumed. And in that invisible pack that I'm referring to, there is a lot of expectations, there is a lot of fear, there is a lot of excitement, there is a lot of friendship issues, there is a lot of academic pressure, identity questions, independence, and the desire to belong. On Sunday, right after church service, I approached several children ranging from elementary school to middle school to high school. And I said, what do you want your school year to look like? And I got some answers ranging from, I want it to be easy, I want it to be excellent, I want to be on all A honor rolls, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the things in that invisible backpack that I just referred to. But I wanted to ask you, as parents, are we only preparing our children to go back to school, or are we preparing them to thrive when they get to school? And today, I want to give parents 5 things we can do to help our children start the school year strong. Note the word start, because I am going to be using that framework to talk to you about how to help our children thrive the school year. And so we're going to start off with the S, which means structure their environment. So children thrive when expectations are clear and the environment supports success. I tell people every child needs a champion. And so we need to begin right from this first week of school for some, not everybody. Some started last week, some haven't started yet. But children thrive when expectations are clear. And so as a parent, one of the first things I'd like for you to do is to structure the environment of your children. You need to reestablish sleep and morning routines. Sleep hygiene is so pertinent to their success and to their thriving the school year. When children don't sleep well, they don't do very well at school. And so summer is over. Right now, you need to reestablish their sleep schedule. When and what time do we go to bed? When do we wind down? When do we turn off all devices? And then you also have to talk about morning routines. Let them know if you're a Christian, you're going to do your quiet time in the morning, or we're going to do it after school before we go to bed. Morning routines could include you're going to brush your teeth, you're going to shower, and you're going to eat breakfast. Because the night before, we would have selected what we're putting on in the morning. Those expectations also include what is for lunch. If they are eating school lunch that looks like it's set in stone, you follow the calendar of the school. But if they are taking lunch from home, I think that's part of setting a structure is to make sure there is a food meal menu timetable where they know what snacks they are packing on a Monday, or what food is going into their lunchbox on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, and on a Friday, so that they don't get to school and they're surprised about what is in their lunchbox. And because of that, they get upset during lunch. So I get to school, I was expecting peanut butter jelly and applesauce and maybe water. And I get to school, instead of a peanut butter jelly, I get a grilled sandwich. I don't get any kind of sweets, not gummy bears or something. And I get to school and that throws me off at lunch. So, I mean, we need to really, really, truly set their routines. Also, what happens after school? We need to set very realistic expectations about their homework study systems. When we get back from school, what do we do? Do we go straight to eat some kind of late lunch or early dinner? Do we actually take a nap, observe a siesta? Do we get straight into our homework? Do we get into preparing for the next day by picking the clothes for the next day? There must be some kind of realistic system. Do we get a break? Not necessarily playing on the screen. That's part of setting the expectations. If you know there is not going to be screen time during the week, let them know right off the bat. During the school year, there's no screen time on school days. Screen time starts on the weekend, Friday, after homework has been completed. That way, there is not a lot of going back and forth and all kinds of arguments or all kinds of unrealistic expectations, like them trying to negotiate and saying things like, Mom, if I finish my homework, can I just play a little bit on my phone? Set the expectation. Create very realistic expectations about their study systems and their homework. Now, you need to reduce unnecessary morning chaos. What do I mean by morning chaos? In the mornings, if you have multiple children, who showers first? Who gets into the bathroom first if they're sharing bathrooms? You need to reduce that chaos. You don't want children crying in the morning. Before I got back to the room, my sister already got into the bath and I told her I got there first and there's all this chaos. Reduce unnecessary morning chaos by letting your children know who goes first, who is doing what when somebody else is in the shower, and so on and so forth. Also, you must discuss extracurricular commitments before overscheduling. It's the beginning of the school year. They're going to get to school now and they're going to get excited as they start talking to their friends. Their friends are saying, oh, well, I signed up for this, I signed up for that. And they're going to come back and tell you, Mom, I was talking with my friends and everyone is in the marching band. They're in some kind of extracurriculars that you didn't plan for as a parent, which means that you can get overscheduled if this is not discussed. So all of this have to be discussed. Go ahead and go over the contracts about phones that you have with your children. Go about any contracts that you have with family about gaming and social media during school nights. For this one, I'm specifically referring to children that are in the higher grades, like high school students. You need to move from parent control structure to student-owned structure. You really want the students to own it, to understand that they are taking responsibility for themselves. And so, parents, I want you to think about it. Yeah. So this is all about structuring the environment. Now, T for talk and listen. Communication is very essential if our children are going to thrive. And so you need to literally talk to them. Don't make every conversation about performance. They get back from school, the first thing you say is, did you get a green? You're talking to the preschoolers. Were you on green? Were you on red? How was school? And all of that. Instead of only how was school, what grade did you get? Did you finish your homework? I want to encourage you to ask open-ended questions that enhance a lot of communication. That's where you can understand what is going on with your children with their school day. So instead of saying, did you have a good school day? Where they're going to say yes, no. Say things like, what was the best part of your day today? When you say what was the best part of your day today, of course, as a child, I'm going to beam if I was happy as I try to relive or recall the best part of my day. And if my day didn't go so well, you immediately see the look on my face where I'm like, yeah, okay. So someone upset me at lunch today. So ask open-ended questions because you really want to talk and listen. What was the best part of today? What felt difficult today? Who did you spend your time with today? Did anything happen that made you uncomfortable today? Those are some of the conversation starters that you want to have with your children. And then you want to listen without immediately trying to fix things, lecture, or correct them. Parents, talk and listen. You want them to know that you care, not that you're monitoring them. And so give them the chance to talk about things that they really want to talk about, because our access to their life changes, but our availability should not change. Let them know that you're there. You're just a phone call away if they want to talk. Don't put a lot of pressure on them. But the bottom line is, in order for our children to thrive, we have to be willing to talk and listen. That way we know what is going on in their lives. Don't be too quick to correct, to lecture, to fix. Otherwise, they are going to coil back into their shell. They're not going to want to tell you things. And another thing that we need to do for our children to thrive the school year is to be very affirming. Affirm their identity. This can be one of the strongest things that we're going to do for our children the school year if we want them to thrive. Before the world tells our children who they are, we should, as parents, be reminding them of or about who they are or whose they are and who they are becoming. My husband, when he dropped her off, as she stepped out of the car, he would lay his hands on her and say, "You are the head and not the tail. You are the best amongst your peers. Today is easy for you. I anoint you in the name of the Lord." Basically doing a lot of affirmations. So I want us as parents to separate identity from academic performance. As a Christian, the Bible tells us clearly that our children, they are signs and wonders. And so you need to begin to affirm them, affirm those kinds of things to them. A child is more than a GPA. A child is more than class rank. A child is more than their athletic ability. A child is more than their college acceptance. And when it comes to comparison, please do not do sibling comparison. Don't let them get back from school and you're like, your brother was on a green. How come you were on an orange? Or your sister was on an orange. How come you're on a red? Please, please, please avoid sibling comparison. Be very affirmative. Affirm their character, not just their achievements. Don't start off by talking about labels like you're lazy, you're bad at math. Your teacher said when they asked you to talk, you were just shy. Your brother is just a smart one here. How come you couldn't speak up? Be very careful about labels. Affirm positive identities. As a Christian parent, life and death are in the power of your tongue, and you would eat the fruit. If they get back from school and one person forgets the routine and they leave their backpack or their shoes where they shouldn't leave them, don't be too quick to label them. Don't say things like, "You're so disorganized. How come your backpack is still on the dining table?" Redirect them. "Hey, sweetie, would you please take your backpack to your room?" Or if there's a closet where you put those things. Let's be very careful about what we say, the words that are what we call our children, because they are going to be what we call them. Our children need to walk into their classrooms knowing that their identity was established before a teacher established or assigned a grade. Let them know that their identity has been established even before a friend accepted them. It's the beginning of a new school year. Initially, there's going to be caucuses, people that know themselves, especially if your child is transitioning to an entire new school zone. They left their former school and they're going to another school. You want them to understand who they are. You want to affirm their identity. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are the head and not the tail. You are very polite. You're very accepting. People accept you. People like you. Okay? These are some of the things that we're going to do to help our children thrive. So we've talked about structuring their environment. We've talked about talking and listening, not just talking. You've got to listen to them. And then we've talked about affirming their identity. Please do not fail to let them know they are wonderfully and fearfully made. Of course, that first day of school, they are going to see children with different hairstyles, and they're going to think about the many thousands, hundreds of styles or things that they could have done that they didn't do. So they're going to come back home and say, Mom, can I tell you something? The next time I braid my hair, I'm just talking about after this is done, after we take this down, can we please have my hair this way? They are going to see those things and they're going to come back and talk about them. Please don't be mean. Listen to them. It's natural. We're all human. Okay? Let them know, yes, we can try that, but you still look good right now. This is very nice. I'm just telling you this. I think this is very lovely. You look really nice. Reassure them that they are looking good. Okay? And some are going to come back and say things like, Mom, remember that shoes that we talked about? My friend had them. Don't be very harsh and say things like, you should be grateful for what you have. Listen to them. Be very affirming. Positive affirmations can be very encouraging. Positive affirmations can help the mindset. You are the parent here. You are the adult here. They need all the encouragement they can get. So, of course, that is our STA. Now, let's talk about responsibility. I really want us to help our children to take responsibility, to own their school year, and to be very resilient. And our role as parents is to support our children, help them. That does not mean removing every obstacle from their path, but we need to also help them. There is always the temptation to rescue them. We rescue them by telling them, don't forget your homework. There is a temptation to rescue them by always making them feel that their teachers are wrong. But what you need to ask yourself is, am I helping my child solve this problem, or am I solving it for them? For college students, I can tell you what, my child, she has some things that she needs to do. And I made up my mind, I'm not going to talk about it again. Because at times they need to learn. I'm not saying learn in the hard way, but they really need to learn. College students are going to come back to you about roommate disagreement. It's it's probably the first week of school or the first month of school. Even if that roommate was someone they had known or they did a roommate match, they are not the same. And so there's going to be roommate disagreement. Empower them to try to resolve issues on their own. Listen to them when they talk to you about it, but empower them to try to resolve things on their own. They have to own it. And, if they feel bad, help them to stay resilient, because tell them sometimes you win and sometimes you're learning. You're not really losing. Help them to bounce back up. They are going to miss some deadlines, okay? And also, they're going to encounter the consequences of poor time management. You want to redirect them and help them, not necessarily solving it for them, but directing them to the solutions. And it felt like all eyes were on you. So what's your plan to avoid that? How much time are you estimating to walk to your classroom? And if they're still in high school, middle school, and they are being tardy, they get tardy sleeps, the first week of school, ask them, what can you do better to make sure that you're not tardy? If there's 4 minutes passing time, are you staying on the hallways, chatting with your friends, catching up and all that? You just have to help them to see the picture and what they can do better. So for preschoolers, it could be something as simple as let's do it together. For elementary school students, it could be let me show you how. For middle school, you want to say things like, what do you think you should do? Let them take responsibility. For high school students, literally ask them, so what's your plan? And for college students, let me know how it goes. That way, you are helping them to own it, okay? You are helping them to own it. Let's talk a little bit about resilience. So the goal is not to raise children who never suffer, struggle, Excuse me. The goal is to raise children who know what to do when struggle comes. They know how to bounce back. So it is important that you are helping them see the bigger picture, not necessarily helping them to resolve all of the issues that come up. So we've talked about structuring their environment. We've talked about talking and listening. We've talked about affirming their identity. And now we've talked about responsibility and resilience to teach them to thrive. School success is bigger than academic success. It's not where developing the old child. It's not just about all A honor rolls. We need to teach these children to thrive generally. One of the things I tell students is there is nothing wrong with asking for help. The other thing I tell children is you can learn anything. Anything is a video from Khan Academy that I've used for students in all grade levels, even software engineering boot camps. It has been very helpful. Let them know that they can learn anything. Nobody was born knowing how to tie their shoelaces. Nobody was born knowing how to ride a bicycle. Even Einstein had to learn his ABCs. So you want them to understand that it is okay to ask for help. You want them to understand that they are capable of learning. We can all learn. I'm also going to drop a link about famous failures, people that have failed in the past and they are now very famous. Somebody like Walt Disney, okay? Somebody like Oprah Winfrey. There's so many people that failed initially, but then as they continue to demonstrate a growth mindset and they stuck at it, they were successful. So one key thing you want to teach your children that would help them to thrive is to tell them it is okay to ask for help and there is no such thing as a stupid question. It is better they ask their teachers whilst they're in the classroom than pretending that it's okay, they got it and they didn't get it. Also, you want to teach them to advocate for themselves. They must be able to advocate for themselves. If a teacher marks their script and it looks as if they got an answer correctly and correct and their teacher marked it as incorrect, teach them to be polite and ask their teacher, excuse me, assuming their teacher is Miss Gibson. Hi, Miss Gibson. May I please talk to you about my grade on that assignment? Teach them to advocate for themselves. Don't always be quick to send an email to Miss Gibson. Excuse me. Miss Gibson, my child, she told me that a friend, the answer you marked as incorrect, she looked at one of her other friends' scripts and it was marked correct. Can you let them do that for themselves? Let them advocate for themselves. It's going to be one of the biggest life skills that would help them in the future. Also teach them to build healthy relationships. They shouldn't mingle with people that are always gossiping, always laughing at other kids. It's not healthy for them. Because even the values that you raise them with. So teach them to not hang out with children that are in the habit of making fun of other children. Teach them to build healthy relationships. Even for college students, teach them to build healthy relationships to the point where they know when to say no. They should never be afraid to say no. Nobody should be putting so much pressure on them and saying, can we go to this place over this weekend? They should be able to stand up for themselves and say, oh, I'm sorry, I had other plans. I'm not going to be able to go, maybe some other time. That is a healthy relationship. And an healthy relationship will be such that their roommate tells them, can we go to this place? And when they say no, their roommate is putting pressure on them and telling them, maybe they say things like, if we're going to go out of the city, I'll prefer to first check with my parents. And their roommate says things like, are you a baby? Aren't you already 18? This is college and all of that stuff. Those kinds of relationships are not healthy. The relationships where their roommates are belittling them, making them feel that they have done something wrong just because they are saying no. It should be okay to say no. So teach them to build healthy relationships. Another thing you want to teach them is to know how to manage and handle disappointments. Things are not going to always go the way they want. If your child is playing basketball, they're in any kind of sports, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you're not really losing, you're learning. It's a book by John Maxwell. I'm going to also drop the link to the book written by John Maxwell. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But, in parentheses, it says learn. You are not really learning. Because if your children don't know how to manage disappointments, it could result into a mental health crisis. It could cause the unnecessary anxiety. The disappointments that are not properly managed could lead to depression. So you want to make sure that they are handling disappointments in a very healthy way. So I'm going to drop all of those links that we just talked about. And I just remembered another link that I'm going to drop. It's something about sleep hygiene. That link, that video really talks about how to, keep the room temperature really cool, because it's very helpful for sound sleep, how to keep the room dark, how to wind down at least an hour to 2 hours before going to bed, and so on and so forth. You also need to teach them how to handle correction, how to handle criticisms, corrections. At times, some children, they don't do very well with corrections, and they think that they are being criticized. So these are things you should not just teach them, but pray about it. Say, Lord, help my child to handle correction wisely. Help my child to manage disappointments in a very healthy way. You also want to teach them to make wise decisions. As you pray for them, ask them to pray for wisdom. The Bible says wisdom is profitable to direct. So teach them how to make wise decisions, and also teach them to rest. Rest is so important. If they're going to try the school year, they need to be resting. They shouldn't be taking on too much. I know some children are very ambitious. They're going to get to school now and they're going to say, oh, my friend is doing this, my friend is doing that. I want to do this, I want to do that. They need to rest. Also, teach them to prioritize. Teach them to recognize when something isn't right, and help them to seek trusted adults for counsel. There are times that they don't want to tell you everything, but help them to develop all those disciplines. For the older students, like college students, they need to know how to communicate professionally. They shouldn't be rude to their professors, because some professors don't play, and so they don't want to be rude when they are communicating. Teach them how to use emails professionally. Help them to understand deadlines. Money management is a big one, because if you get broke in college and you don't have access to money, it's a big stressor. So they must be sticking with their budget. They shouldn't be spending money that they do not have. It can result into unnecessary stress. I think more importantly, they shouldn't wait. We shouldn't wait until there's a problem before we teach this life skills. So sometime this week, parents, I don't want you to just check your child's physical backpacks for those that are still at home with us, but I want you to check the invisible backpacks. These are some of the ways you can check. You should be able to ask your children some of these questions. What are you excited about the school year? I told you I asked about 10 children, students, even some of college students. Yeah, I remember asking a nursing student. Ask them, what are you excited about the school year? Ask them, what are you worried about the school year? Because it might be something that you can help them to navigate before it triggers unnecessary emotional stress. And you can ask a question such as, how can I support you without taking over? Especially for college students. How can I support you without taking over? Because they get to a point where they feel they are all grown when they start reaching 20s. They think they got it all together. It's okay that they think that way. That's a good mindset. But at the same time, at times they need support. So without necessarily taking over, you can still be supportive. So in closing, parents, the backpack is full. Some of what our children are carrying, we put there intentionally, like our values, our faith, the encouragement, the expectations. But they may also be carrying things that we cannot see. And so this school year, don't only ask whether they have all their school supplies, pencils, laptops, lunch boxes, assignments. Pay attention to the invisible things that are being carried. Give them structure. Talk and listen. Affirm their identity. Help them to develop responsibility and resilience, and teach them how to thrive. Let's help our children start strong, not simply or not just academically, but emotionally, socially, spiritually, and developmentally. I meant. Our assignment isn't simple. Preparing our children for the next grade is a good assignment, but that's not the end of our assignment. It is to prepare them for the person they are becoming. I pray your child has a great, fabulous, highly favorable, productive, excellent school year in Jesus' name. Thank you for watching. God bless you.